I'm sorry. I know it's late, but I couldn't leave you here alone like this. Nobody should cry by themselves in the dark. The voice was gentle, hesitant, as 33-year-old Dashio Monroe approached the woman kneeling at the small grave, her expensive suit jacket discarded on the cold ground, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. It was nearly midnight in Riverside Cemetery, and Dashiell had come to visit his wife's grave, a ritual he maintained every Tuesday evening after his daughter Wren fell asleep, when he'd noticed the solitary figure collapsed before a fresh headstone. 30-year-old Avalon Pierce looked up, mascara streaking her face, eyes red and swollen. She should have been embarrassed being caught this vulnerable by a stranger, but she was too exhausted to care anymore. "You don't understand," she whispered, her voice raw. "She was only 6 years old. 6! And I was traveling for work when it happened, the accident. I wasn't there. I'm never there. I chose board meetings over bedtime stories, and now there are no more stories to read." Dashiell settled onto the cold ground beside her, recognizing the particular devastation of parental loss. His own wife had died 2 years ago during a routine surgery that went catastrophically wrong, leaving him alone with their infant daughter. He understood the geography of this specific grief. "My wife's grave is 3 rows over," he said quietly. "I come here every Tuesday. Sometimes I talk to her, sometimes I just sit. The pain doesn't really shrink. You just grow bigger around it, make space for it to exist alongside everything else." Avalon studied him through her tears, this stranger with kind eyes and paint-stained hands, wearing jeans and a faded jacket, offering comfort without judgment or platitudes. "How do you live with it? The guilt?" "Some days better than others," Dashiell admitted. "I tell myself that my daughter Wren needs me present now more than she needs me perfect, that carrying my wife's memory means living in a way that would make her proud, not drowning in regret." They sat together as the night grew colder, 2 broken people finding unexpected solace in shared understanding. Avalon learned that Dashiell was a struggling artist who painted murals and taught community art classes to support his daughter. Dashiell learned that Avalon was CEO of Pierce Technologies, a company her father had built, that her husband had left her 6 months after their daughter's diagnosis with a terminal illness, claiming he couldn't handle the stress. "He took half of everything in the divorce," Avalon said bitterly. "But he didn't want custody, didn't even want visitation. Said watching her decline was too painful. So I juggled hospice care and quarterly earnings calls and told myself I was being strong. I was just being absent in a different way." What neither of them said that night, what they couldn't yet articulate, was how desperately they each needed this conversation, this recognition that grief doesn't care about tax brackets or social status, that loss levels everyone to the same raw humanity. Over the following weeks, they kept meeting at the cemetery, accidentally at first, then intentionally. Dashiell would bring coffee in a battered thermos. Avalon would bring pastries from the bakery near her office. They'd talk about their children, their regrets, their small victories in learning to survive. Avalon slowly revealed the depth of her loneliness. Her entire life had been the company, building it, defending it, proving she deserved her father's legacy. She'd neglected her marriage, rationalized her absence from her daughter's life as necessary sacrifice. Now the company felt like an empty monument to misplaced priorities. And Dashiell confessed his own struggles, the crushing financial pressure of single parenthood, the art career that barely kept them housed, the fear that he wasn't enough for Wren, that she deserved more than a father who painted murals for grocery money. What happened next emerged naturally, born from genuine care rather than calculation. Avalon visited Dashiell's small apartment, met 4-year-old Wren, a bright, gentle child who showed her drawings and asked innocent questions about why Avalon looked sad. And something in Avalon cracked open watching this little girl, so similar in age to the daughter she'd lost, seeing how Dashiell was present in all the ways she hadn't been. "Will you teach me?"
Avalon asked one evening, watching Dashiell help Ren paint. How to just be present like this? I don't know how. I've spent my whole life optimizing, strategizing, winning. I never learned how to just sit and be human.
Dashiell smiled softly. You're already doing it. Being here, asking questions, letting Ren show you her world, that's presence. It's not complicated. It's just choosing connection over everything else. Slowly, Avalon became part of their small circle. She'd arrive after work, shed her CEO armor, and sit on the floor playing with Ren. She funded Dashiell's community art program, not as charity, but as genuine investment in work she believed mattered. And she began restructuring her company, delegating more, prioritizing differently, understanding that success without humanity is just expensive loneliness. But the transformation wasn't one-sided. Dashiell learned from Avalon, too, about self-worth beyond financial struggle, about how to advocate for his art, about building sustainable systems instead of just surviving day to day. She helped him apply for grants, connected him with galleries, saw value in his work that he'd stopped seeing himself. What surprised them both was how naturally their friendship deepened, not into romance, but into something equally profound, genuine partnership built on mutual respect and shared growth. They were healing each other without trying to fix each other, offering presence without demanding perfection. 6 months after that first meeting in the cemetery, Avalon made a radical decision. She stepped down as CEO, appointing someone who actually wanted the role, and opened a foundation supporting single parents and childhood illness research. It wasn't abandoning her father's legacy, it was honoring it by remembering that businesses should serve human flourishing, not replace it. And Dashiell, with stable funding and renewed confidence, created a series of murals across the city dedicated to parents who'd lost children, beautiful, heartbreaking pieces that gave grief a face and voice. One mural featured Avalon's daughter alongside his wife, both rendered in gentle colors that suggested peace rather than loss. On the anniversary of that first meeting, they stood together in the cemetery, this time with Ren between them, placing flowers on both graves. "Do you think they'd be proud of us?" Avalon asked softly, her hand resting gently on Ren's shoulder. "I think," Dashiell said, his voice thick with emotion, "they'd be grateful we found each other, that we turned our grief into something that helps others grieve, that we're choosing to live instead of just survive." Ren looked up at both of them with the wisdom children sometimes possess. "Mommy's not sad anymore, Daddy, and Miss Avalon's little girl isn't either. They're happy we're friends." Avalon knelt, pulling Ren into a gentle hug, tears streaming, but no longer only from sadness. "Thank you, sweetheart, for sharing your daddy with me, for teaching me how to be present. Because grief connects us in ways joy sometimes can't. It strips away pretense, reveals our shared fragility, reminds us that wealth and power and success mean nothing when we're kneeling in the dark crying. And sometimes the kindest thing we can do is simply sit beside someone in their pain, not trying to fix it, but witnessing it, validating it, proving that even in our darkest moments, we're not truly alone. That's where healing begins, not in grand gestures, but in quiet presence, in choosing connection over isolation, in building bridges between broken hearts that somehow, together, become a little less broken. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's spread more stories of kindness and hope together.